talk about water and sanitation and touch solid residuals issues. And we will have Alexandre Sitivaras, who you know, and is also going to comment. And we will also have a former CETESB staff, who is Tomás, who is also coming and making comments. Sitivaras is already here, and while they arrive, I just remind you where we are. We have already covered the importance of investment in infrastructure. After that, we discussed the electricity sector. Then we discussed water and sanitation. In water and sanitation, the emphasis was on the provisional measure 868, which is going to be, Tomás, you're very welcome. Here's a special seat for you. The provisional measure 868 is going to be discussed and hopefully approved in Congress this week. It has impacts upon water and sanitation for sure, and also for solid residuals. It has a few points which are quite important for solid residuals, including the possibility of charging a tariff on solid residual services. Then we discussed telecommunications. Our special guest was Wagner Hegel. And then we discussed railways last week. We had Fabiano Poppenmeier with us, and also Pedro Henrique. Here we have that. Alexandre Sitivaras is with us. Thank you very much. We have a special seat for you, and so we are here. Okay, and next week we are going to talk about ports and airports, and finally about public-private partnerships. So this is our class. Any questions where we are and to where we are going?
Okay, so my name is Thomas. I'm a geographer. I'm 33 years old. I was born and I live here in São Paulo, but also I lived abroad in Hungary and in Italy. And I've been working in water utilities, water sector, and environment for the last 10 years. And I've been working in the government of São Paulo state, working with environmental licensing, and also with water resources in general. And I just finished my PhD about geographic information systems for water utilities 2 months ago. And it was written in Portuguese. If there is any foreigner here, we can talk about it. So.
Yes, Guilherme.
Yes, my name is Guilherme Castanha. I'm a civil engineer. I initially started working as a civil engineer on heavy construction, and then for one accident or blast, I was fired, and then I realized that perhaps it was a good time to go abroad, and I lived in Australia and did my master's degree there and my and a postgraduate diploma there. And so upon my return, I realized that I had to do something for my country, and that I wanted to work here. I wanted to bring about change in here. And I thought that permaculture as an ecological design science could offer this path for me. So I jumped into it, and then across the way, I find my way to work with water, and I've been working with this since 2006, integrating civil engineering and this ecological design perspective to bring change on how cities deal with water. But I started small. I started very local. So if we can solve the local, how can we scale this up to include cities that can really be more than sustainable, but be regenerative? So that's my agenda.
Português ou inglês? I'm a civil engineer also. Actually, since my first job, I started to work with waste management. Actually, I have a previous experience with construction, but most of my career was in waste management. Okay, and that was something that helped me. Okay? And then I became a consultant in 2015. Made some works with Gesner and everything. Where I worked in some major companies, always looking for more perspective of the big problems, the big cities. Okay, how to manage waste in the big cities in an environment that is not that well prepared from the perspective of how things is done. Okay, in Brazil. And then since
Vargas has written a chapter of the book that you have, the challenges of infrastructure. And one of the chapters is on solid residuals.
And now since December last year, I became the director, corporate director of Intercement, the cement company. Okay. Why a guy from waste management world goes to a cement company is that we substitute fossil fuels by waste. Okay, all kinds of waste, called co-processing. Okay, and I'm also in charge of all the environmental and sustainability issues that goes to the cement business.
Excellent. So we have very special guests and our very special guest here to present the Swedish experience.
Okay, I'm Marco Cardoso, and I'm an economic regulator from RCESP. It's the agency, the Energy and Sanitation Agency in São Paulo State, and we were demanded to regulate some activity regarding waste, because nowadays we just regulate water and sewage and also natural gas, the gas grid, but we were demanded to regulate solid waste, and then I went to. We really didn't know anything about waste, solid waste, and so I harnessed this. I took advantage of this lack of expertise, and then I went to Sweden to verify how it is, because the company that was demanding our regulation was an incinerator, and then I went to see how it works in Sweden. That it's a country that is that they care a lot of in it is it is recognized as a very good environmental manager, and so I went there to verify how their experience. So that's it.
Okay, very good. We are looking forward to seeing the work of Marco. Let me propose that we start with the challenges of the solid residue sector with Alexandre, and then we go to the hydroillogical cycle. We have a break, and then we have the whole second part to the Swedish experience. Does that work well?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, very good. So we usually work until 8:30 in the first part. We have a break, and then we have the second part. So Silvana, the Swedish case will be discussed in the second part. Okay. Perhaps Marco has a presentation, or it's already here, the presentation?
No, it's his thesis.
Oh, okay, no problems. You choose the points that you want to stress, okay? Here we have okay, very good. So, Alexandre, the floor is yours.
So, but I think I will jump from English to Portuguese. Here we go. Okay, Portuguese okay for everybody?
Feel free to ask whenever you don't understand.
Okay, we have an hour, right? Aqui, ó.
So we have Guilherme's discussion before the break. So
Okay.
we'll stop at 8:30. So we have an hour and 10 minutes for both presentations.
Okay, so 30 minutes.
Yeah.
30, 35 minutes,
30,
okay?
30, and then
Okay.
ask questions, ask questions as we go along.
Ok. I will try eu vou tentar não ser muito prolixo em alguns temas que acabam sendo relevantes, a gente deixar mais para discussão, tá? Um pouco, primeiramente, mais só um overview do setor, tá? Atualmente, de acordo com a Brelp, a gente gera 79 milhões, quase 80 milhões de toneladas ano de resíduos, tá? O importante é que eu estou focando na questão Sim. So we go in English. no problem at all. So first, just an overview of the sector, okay? According to ABRELP, that's the Brazilian Association of Waste Management, we produce across around 80 million tons of waste per year in Brazil, okay? From this, around 41% goes to dump sites, okay? It's not treated, not even disposed in landfills, okay? It's dump sites, open air, okay? That's around 60% of our municipalities send their waste to these dump sites. Okay, so most of these problems are in the small cities, not in the big cities. Okay, our major cities nowadays is already send their waste to landfills. Okay, but the small cities have this. It's where we have this main problem. From the municipal budget, okay, the municipal service related to waste represent around 5 to 7% of their budget. Okay, that's the amount of money that is expended by the municipalities. Okay, the market size is around 28 million reais per year. Okay, in 2017, and the average cost of it is 10.37 reais per habitant per month, okay? Just for you to figure out, in Europe, it's 10 times more, okay? So we have second-class waste management, but we also expend to fill money on it, okay? The municipalities are not able to have a budget in the right size of their problem, okay? The average, and we have a huge problem of payment, okay? There is a lot of exposure to it. The third part that manage the waste, usually are third-part companies, okay? We have around 30% of delinquency. Okay. Just our main technologies nowadays are the landfills. We already have a lot of biogas from landfills to generate energy, okay? Nowadays we have already around 150 megawatts installed in energy being produced by the biogas, and our still making sorting manually, okay? We just start to put our first MRFs, okay, material recovery facilities in an industrial scale, okay? But we're still making this through cooperatives. So what, nowadays we have rates of recovery very low, right? 2 to 3%. That's what we recycle. That's what we actually recover from the waste. And that's mainly. Okay.
I was interested in the European and Swedish experience, in how it contrasts with the, let's say, the American experience, in the sense that we have more abundance, we have abundant land here as opposed to Europe.
Yeah.
So I presume that in Europe would be quite different, wouldn't it?
Actually, I think what's the main difference between the European and the American experience is the business model. Okay, in Europe, most of everything related to waste management have very cheap money for investment. Okay, and usually it came from the European funds for environment. So it have very low cost capex with very low rates, and sometimes even no rates. The money is borrowed. Okay. What?
Interest rate.
Yeah, interest rate. Okay. So, and then in the United States, you must have a solid business plan. Okay. So why you don't have a lot of waste to energy in the United States? Because that's not the most important, it's not the best business. Landfill is a much better business than waste to energy. And when you figure out about the RRR or the payback, okay? So you only have waste to energy in the United States where land is really a problem, okay? But when you look all the Midwest or the center United States, there's a lot of area. So that's landfill. And that's the same that happened here, okay? For us to waste to energy and things like this is something that will only happen in the big cities, the big metropolitan areas, okay? Because that's when the problem of land generate a gate fee that's high enough for you to have a good business in waste to energy, okay? But when you have a landfill that's cheap, you go for landfill, okay?
Countries such as India, Mexico, maybe, would you say that we are still second-hand waste management, or we are?
If we compare to Latin America, we are doing well. Okay, if we go to Mexico, we have 70% of dump sites. Okay, if you go to Argentina, if you go to the region of Buenos Aires, you have 3 landfills in the whole provincia de Buenos Aires. Okay, so Chile is doing well also. Okay, is making it in a good way. India, mainly dump sites and landfills, but you already have some waste to energy projects, okay? And if you go to Egypt, you don't even have a gate fee for landfilling, okay? So it's dump site, okay? Because it's you just have gate, you just pay for the recollection. Final disposal is something that they are still trying to figure out what it is, okay? So let's go. Just taking a look at some pictures, okay? That's what biogas and energy recovery from the biogas from the landfill is about, okay? That's the landfill of Caieiras here in the metropolitan area of São Paulo, almost 30 megawatts installed. It's a very good business. That's the reason that all the private landfills are moving for it, okay? And then in almost 6 years, we installed around 150 megawatts of biogas, okay? You have a very low capex, and being energy generated from the waste, you have some incentives from the federal government, so you have a very good price, final price, okay? These incentives are better than the solar and the wind power, okay? You have what we call transmission cost. You don't have transmission costs. It's became zero when you generate energy from the waste. Okay.
Question, sorry. For these biogas projects, the raw material, so to speak, is it just organic waste or different types of waste?
It's a landfill. Okay, so you have everything there, but the biogas became from the degradation of the organic waste. Okay, in the landfill happens anaerobic digestion process, so you generate methane. Okay, actually biogas is around 55% methane. Okay, nowadays in Europe you have the anaerobic digestion plants. Okay, that they are making this without the landfill in a faster way. Okay, but 10 years ago, we are actually wasting all this biogas. This biogas are going to the atmosphere, and that's a very bad gas because it's 25 times worse than CO2. Okay, so actually the first biogas projects in Brazil are for carbon credits. Okay, 2007 was my first project in carbon credits with landfill gas from Bahia. Okay, and then you already have some landfills with all this installation capture the biogas, and people start to move to energy when the carbon credits market start to fail, start to go out, vanish. Oops. Manual sorting, okay. Mostly waste pickers and cooperatives. That's what's our reality about recycling and recyclable materials recover, okay? Nowadays in São Paulo you already have first 2 plants, mechanical plants for single stream recyclable materials. That's the selective collection, okay? And also the first mechanical project in large scale to recover recyclable materials from the mixed waste is in Pernambuco, okay? And they already recover recyclables and producing RDF for the cement plant from there. Igaraçu. Igaraçu is 30 kilometers from Recife, okay? North. So the entry technologies, okay, are the MRFs, the mechanical recovery facilities, that we already have 2 in São Paulo, and 1 in Pernambuco, and 1 in the countryside in Paulínia, okay. are the first projects. That's something that is start to move, because two matters, okay? Nowadays we have very high prices for recyclable materials, okay? Mainly PET and aluminum, but also for PE and PP, okay, types of plastics. And actually, the business plans, the business model start to make sense, okay, to recover from the mixed weight, not from the selective string, okay, to sell it, okay, and the plant, and then you start to increase the lifetime that you have for your landfill, okay. So you make your landfill life increase, and actually you also make a project that is profitable, okay? It's not something to do with the government, okay? That's not, it's really a business plan, okay? Composting and biodigestion, we don't have anything in really big scale, okay, for the cities. Nowadays here in São Paulo, they are discussing first what they call eco park to make composting in big scale. Today we have here in São Paulo 3 places where they compost waste from the public fairs, okay? But it's still very in small scale. Waste to energy, that's what we met it with each other in the past. We have a first project here in Barueri. It's a plant for 20 megawatts, and we have just news about the plant in Rio de Janeiro have just received their environmental permission, okay, to be installed. Okay, I have some doubts about the business model for that. The gate fee is very low, but they get the permission. On the RDF, that's refuse derivated fuel, that actually is to get the dry part of the waste that's not recyclable, mainly papers, cardboard, and contaminated, and some types of plastic that's not good for recycling, and you shred it and became a fuel, okay? Actually, that's the way England find out to recover most of their waste. So in England, what you don't burn or you don't recycle, you make RDF and sell to Europe, okay? So this company I'm in, we buy RDF from England in Portugal, okay? And nowadays I'm working a new contract to buy RDF from Italy in Egypt, okay? So it became something, it's really a fuel, okay? It's really a fuel. That's a view of a MRF, of a mechanical recovery facility, okay, where it's not picking, okay. Actually, it's a system of different types of equipment that you separate the types of waste by size, by weight, and finally you have some optical sensors that you separate the plastics by type and colors, and you have ferrous metal separators, no ferrous metal separators. So actually people in this kind of plants are only in the final stage of it in a quality sector, where they separate only to manage the best quality of the equipment. This kind of plants over Europe, you have hundreds of plants like this in Europe. Nowadays, you also have some hundreds of this kind of plants in the United States, okay? Mainly where the recycling, how I say it? Because there is not, in United States, not everywhere we have recycling companies that are managing with this. There is most in California, in Florida, you have a few, in New York also, where you have this kind of business very well developed, okay? And one thing that really happened, that Waste Management, that's the biggest company in the United States, go for it, okay? So for a long time, Waste Management only landfill their waste. And there's around 5 years they start to buy companies that make recycling and sorting and start to move for it, okay? Nowadays there is a huge impact in the business that because everybody used to separate waste and sell it to China, okay? And this movement was the main movement of this kind of market for a long time. Like Germany, that was one of the countries that have the highest rates of recycling. 83% of the plastic separated in Germany used to go to China since 2 years ago. Okay, in last year, China raised a Chinese wall over the market saying, I don't receive more waste. Okay, I just receive if it's already recyclable. The first step was made. So he don't want bottles, PET bottles. He wants recyclable flake of PET. Okay, and that is changing the whole market. Okay, cause a huge impact in Australian market. Australian market in the end of last year is start to stop making recycling because they are all their storage capacity are overgone. Okay, and then actually what's happening that a new business is going on everywhere that's really recycling. Okay, get to the point where they have the recyclable raw material. Okay, here in Brazil nowadays we have some very strong movements this way that are pushing this business. Okay, and that's actually is the factories that must move. Okay, because nowadays if we rise from this 2% to 4%, we don't have infrastructure for it. We don't have factories enough to recycle all this material. Okay, and we could reach like 20%. So we have an infrastructure gap very, very, very big. Just these MRFs, okay, you have two kinds. The clean MRF that receive the material already separated from the generators or selective recollection, okay, or single stream, and then you have the dirt MRFs that's accepted and this mixed solid waste. That's what we have here in Brazil, okay, mainly. Because when we talk about selective collection in the city of São Paulo, we are talking about 2%, 3% of the waste, okay? We are not talking about huge amounts of the waste. The RDF actually is a second product that became from the MRFs, okay, because their dry waste could become a fuel that's accepted mainly by the cement companies. It's a big business in Europe, okay. Actually, the same amount that was, when you talk about energy recovery in Europe from the waste, the market of waste to energy, that's incineration, and the market of RDF is almost the same size, okay? If you, the median, okay, the average number for Europe. That's the first project of waste to energy in Brazil. That's Barueri, all right, 125 tons per day. Our CESP is regulating this contract. It's a PPP contract for 30 years. That's the first one. The second one is moving in Rio de Janeiro. I really believe in this kind of solution for the big cities. Okay, I really think São Paulo must to go for this because we will have space for this amount of waste in landfills. Okay, we're talking about 20,000 tons per day of waste in São Paulo. Okay, any major city, okay, in the world need to have not only incineration but a complex and very well elaborated system of waste destination that includes not only recycling but also composting and incineration, okay? Because if you don't have all these kinds of solution, we will
we will never be able to reach the zero landfill or something near the zero landfill, okay? And actually, one of our main problems for this is to manage the revenues of this PPP contractor, okay? You have a very bad, the municipalities are bad payers. Since municipalities are bad payers, to get loans for this kind of PPP is very hard. People still don't understand very well that waste management is sanitation. We pay for water, we pay for wastewater, we pay for telephone, we pay for energy, but we don't pay our bill of waste. And that's caused this huge problem of where is the money to pay it, okay? How I can get money in a bank, there's no bankability for it, okay? That's one of the main issues and the main concern in this market. Just an overview about looking only the main metropolitan areas in Brazil, okay? We could talk about something like 2.4 gigawatts of energy that could be capacity to generate energy from the waste only through incineration, okay? Well, a little bit about the stakeholders, okay? The society is the waste generator and the end user of the service, okay? The service providers are the private sector, and the municipalities are the service holders by law, okay? To who belong, from the point that the generator put his waste on the road, on the sidewalk, okay? It belongs to the municipality. The municipality have the charge to take care of it, okay? And usually they hire service providers, private service providers, okay? So that's it could be made by the municipality, okay? But nowadays the big cities are not take charge of it, okay? Even you talk, Rio de Janeiro have Conlurb. Conlurb make it. No, Conlurb organize it, but it's only third parts that really run it, okay? Actually, you have the contracts usually are divided by in three areas, in three subsectors. That's the waste collection, the final destination, okay, that is waste sorting, composting, and the final disposal in landfills, and the urban cleaning, that is sweeping of cities and public places, maintenance of green areas, and other service, okay, is the city cleaning, okay? And then you have actually three main ways to hire this, okay? You have the standard service contracts, okay? That's 5 years contract, very low investments, okay? Most of the waste is managed under this kind of contracts, so there's no any kind of investment being made. You're buying trucks, okay, usually. Then you have the concession contracts that are like the traditional contracts, okay, that's only for divisible service. That's what we have for collection and final disposal here in São Paulo. And then you have the PPP contracts, okay? What's the main difference between this and this, okay? Usually, for the waste, you cannot make standard contracts because you don't have a direct billing, okay? And PPP, you can make indirect billing, okay? São Paulo have a standard contract because it was made before the PPP law, okay? That's the reason that we here in São Paulo we are under this.
We've been discussing several infrastructure segments, and we always discuss whether there is vertical integration or not. Remember the railways, so we have the infrastructure and then the transportation services, or water, we have the reservoir and the water treatment plant, reservation, distribution. Here, basically, we start cleaning, having the collection, and having the landfills. How often are these services made by the same firm? Is this integrated? Is vertical integration the trend, or the trend is to have just a firm having landfills and other firms in a less concentrated market having collection and cleaning services and so on?
Actually, when we talk about long-term contracts, okay, there's not one, it's changed a lot, okay? In São Paulo, it's all very well divided, okay? Actually, this and this are together, and this and this is together, and this is the third part, because our law understands that it's divisible services, so you could charge directly from the generator, okay? So our new laws understand that this kind can be under a long-term contract, under a concession or something like this, and this usually is in short-term contracts. Also, from the point of view of a concession contract, just in making sense, when you have a large amount of money to make investment, you need a large amount of money to invest in the beginning, to start to have the service being made, okay? Actually, the final destination is the point, is where the most of the capex is in, okay? Is where's the difference, where's the money is being needed, okay? It's the waste treatment, not the waste recollection, actually, okay? So then, if we will go and look for the market, okay, usually the biggest companies in the market make the three kinds of service, but usually they are not the most profitable companies, okay? Because when you talk waste collection and urban cleaning, the fence is very low, okay? So you have a lot of companies, okay? When you talk about the final destination, you need an asset. You need to make investment, usually for you to put up a landfill. It takes some years for final for environmental all the environmental issues and the projects and the construction. You need a lot of money of it. Okay, so usually who has the final disposal is usually have the more profitable company, and usually have the collection under his umbrella also, okay? Because it's something that go with it, okay? You have the final disposal, so it's easier for you to get also the contract of recollection. But
landfill, in the beginning of the course, we discussed about natural monopoly. In a way, a landfill close to a number of cities can be seen as a natural monopoly, in the sense that it's very hard for someone to replicate, and it would not be efficient to have 3 or 4 landfills around a relatively small town. So if you have a landfill, you have a very good bargaining power, and you get all the service.
Exactly. The landfill, or even the treatment facility, it's a natural monopoly, okay? And then the other contracts usually come from it, but usually the movement from the big companies is concentrate more and more in destination and treatment, okay, unless in urban cleaning and waste collection, okay. From 2 perspectives. One is the natural monopoly, but the second one is here you have a much better control of the business, so you have better prices. Okay, here there's lots of waste collection companies, so there is much more. It's much more competitive, so the prices are worse. Okay. And that's happening in a city like São Paulo. It's very clear. even in a city like São Paulo that you have 6 landfills around it, it's natural monopolies, because you will not drive your waste from the ABC, from ABC to north area, okay? So actually you have all this natural, that's the same that's happening with this region of Campinas, okay? That you have a private landfill there that's already there for a long time. All the municipal dump sites and old landfills is being closed during the time, and he start to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because to make a new landfill just take a lot of time and a lot of money, okay? So it became a natural monopoly. A part of the legal issue, I think that we already have a very, it's not well established, but it's a very modern law when we discuss waste, okay? Our law is really moving from a linear to a circle, okay? Because we are not more saying that everything goes to a landfill. We are very clear that what we need to treat, then we have solid waste, then you treat it, then you have a refuse, and then you could landfill it. So you only could landfill what there is no other way to recover. That's what our laws say, that we must recover to the maximum before we landfill it, okay? Actually, what happened that our municipalities that are in charge of it ask for more time, for more time, for more time, and what we said in the beginning that we should, this law is from 2010, in the beginning they have 4 years to establish the new system, okay? We are 2009 and we're still negotiating more time for them to move. Actually, the actual environmental minister start to push a little bit more about we will not give you more time, because actually most of the dump sites are municipal dump sites, okay? You don't have private dump sites. If you run a company and you have a dump site, you go to jail. If you are a mayor and you have a dump site, the judges are a little bit more not weak, okay? So actually, this movement is a way you really need to push the government, okay? It's not something that you need to push the private sector. Waste generation, okay, the waste pyramid, actually treatment and disposal, okay? That's where you have the minimize the environmental impacts, and here you minimize the use of natural sources, okay? Actually, what we are always trying to move is avoid more waste to reach treatment and final disposal, okay? And that's actually something that's very, very hard to achieve yet. But that's what our law talks about. And then our law also says that technology for waste energy recovery or municipal solid waste may be used provided their technical environmental visibility. So, and now this year we finally regulated this, okay? Because till 2010, the waste to energy or energy recovery are not regulated, okay? So finally it's regulated. That's it's a huge step for it. Okay, so how I said, move from a linear to a more circular way, okay, to the point of view of it. A little bit about start to talking about our challenges, okay. One of our main challenges is some years ago, GO was hired by ABRELP, by the National Association, okay, to calculate how much money we need to reach to attend our Política Nacional de Resíduos, okay, to reach the targets of Política Nacional de Resíduos. And actually what's the main figure out, what we really figured out, that's the problem was not the capex, not the investment. The investment's not that much, okay? We are talking about to reach the first step, first 7.4 billion, and then to the targets of 2031 plus 2.8 billion, okay? In all this, if we talk about sanitations, the numbers are much, much bigger, okay? But what's the main problem is the amount of costs that we have, okay? That what we can see here, right? That nowadays, this number are from 2006, okay? But nowadays, you have around 10 reais per habitant per month, okay? And you already have a lot of problems to get this money. To reach that new standard, okay, we need to reach 15.75 reais per habitant per month, okay? That's where, how this going to be paid, that is the main problem, our main challenge for the waste management.
How does this PNRS get defined? Who defines this number, this standard?
The national policy.
Okay.
Okay, that's the name of national policy. Okay, national policy of solid waste. That's actually this national policy became a plan, a national plan. Okay, that put the numbers. Okay, and what's one of this? Where's the problem? Okay. Nowadays, we have just a few municipalities that charge any kind of fee for the service, okay, of waste management, and usually it's linked to IPTU, okay? So actually, there is not a money or some revenue that the municipality has that is directly to the service of waste management. Okay, so usually what happens when in the end of the year, when the municipality start to have some problems to pay his bills, that's something natural that happens in Brazil all the time, with almost all the municipalities, they stop to pay for the waste. And why they stop to pay for the waste? Because there is a law in Brazil that the public service that are for everyone interested and that's related to health of the population could not stop being served. So they could not pay and you could not stop to make the service. Okay, and that's a huge problem. And that's what caused our overpricing. Okay, more and more the price is being overpriced. The main targets of the market, okay, it's move from short-term contracts to long-term contracts, okay? High-level delinquency to a short-level delinquency in waste tax or tariff being structured. Low investment to a higher investment environment where you can make all the investment to move from this linear situation to the circle situation, okay? Nowadays, we have a very high risk, or a high risk that we have low bankability of the projects, okay? To share it risk, that's what about the PPP law, to share risks, okay? And good bankability. These low rates of recycling and energy recovery to better rates, alternative revenues, okay? That's a main point. Why all the private landfills are moving to biogas energy, because you have a high quality revenue. When you sell energy, a PPA contract are very strong contracts. That's the reason people move from they don't make contract. They start to move to have not only one revenue that became from the municipality, but revenues that go for a B2B market, okay, a B2B business, okay, where you have much stronger quality revenues. And then also a very important, that's nowadays we still have a waste market that have bad reputation to a much better and good reputation market, okay? That's actually where is the waste management companies are targeting, okay? When you discuss in the association and everything, we are trying to move from this environment where there is no investment, okay, to an environment that start to figure it out. It's been a sanitation problem, okay, where the investments are needed. Okay, that's very important, because to move from one point to another point, we need to make the investments. And we are not in Europe where this investment will be made by the government. Okay, we need to make this investment. We could have money from the public banks. Okay, but anyway, in a project like Barueri, all the guarantees are made by the private partner, not by the public partner. So to get that money, the project of Barueri was 300 million reais of investment. All this was raised by the private partner. The same happened in sanitation projects, okay, or even in energy projects. What the government gives in energy projects? High-class PPA contract. You have a PPA contract that you could use as a guarantee in the bank to raise your money. In the waste management, you still don't have this kind of high-class revenue, okay? So just, até que horas que é mesmo? Já foi, né? Já foi. So here I just detail a little bit more each of one. But actually, the main movement of the market, okay, is leave this low-tech for us to move from this point where you have the situation with no investment, low tech, bad revenues, to this more technical, very good quality revenues and everything. We are moving for a service to energy, raw material, fuel provider, okay? We start to leave the situation where you are only a service company to a company that are providing commodities to the market, okay? And that's what you see in this more established markets like Europe, where the companies already move it from, there is a part that will be always service, like collection. But when you're talking about the final destination treatment, actually we are transforming waste in something else that will be provided as a commodity, being an energetic commodity, raw material commodity, or fuel commodity, okay? Or even in compost commodity, okay? That's the movement. And then you start to have more share revenues. You don't have only your revenues concentrate in the municipality, okay? You have your revenues much more distributed, okay? And then usually you could even talk about decrease the gate fee or something like this. But you still have a gate fee that's very low, very bad contracts, and we still didn't reach this because you have a lot of investments to make it. Until you reach this, you have a lot of OPEX to achieve, okay?
Do you think that this path will only happen if we raise the regulations and we start to throw more responsibility for the private sector, like Ambev and Coca-Cola will be responsible for their waste in their products?
I really believe the reverse logistic, I don't know the English name, okay, but like we have in our law something called shared obligation for the waste management, okay, between the private sector, public sectors, and the citizens, okay. Actually, nowadays what's happening is only the municipalities are paying for this bill. Actually, we are paying because we pay the taxes, but only they are paying. And actually, there's too few money, okay, to make everything. And and yes, you need everybody taking part, but in a much more efficient way, because there is logística reversa de embalagens pós-consumo. Tá.
Logística reversa. Perhaps Kruti can help us.
I think I have
Reversal logistics. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I think this is another name, but it works. And nowadays, what's happening that our agreement are only between the pickers and the industry, the municipalities and the private sector, the private companies that run the system are out of this agreement, okay? So we really need a new agreement to work with it, okay? Because part of the money could come from them, okay? But actually it's don't really make, who pays for it in the end is always the citizen, is the guy who pays the taxes, okay? So for me, the best way for us to make all the citizens and all the generators take part of the problem is the bill. Okay, from the point that you could decide where you send your waste, is then where's the big difference in the situation? Because you could say, I will send it to recycling, where usually you don't have to pay anything, okay? And my final residues that cannot be recycling or could not be sent to composting, I will pay for this recollection and final disposal, okay? That's the main issue, because if the money is coming only from the third part and you are not taking part of it, okay, you always will makes no difference for you, okay? We already discussed it a lot with different municipalities and everything, and you could talk about recycling in school for years, okay? And it don't change. People know about recycling, know that's important, know that they should do it, okay, but they don't do it, okay? And actually, when you figure out what's happening outside, and in the countries that work, people pay for their waste. They pay the bill of the waste, and they have some very clear rules about it, okay? I think it's done. So, I think here's what I just said, okay? What I just said. Okay?
Where's the picture? Well,
These pictures?
yeah.
This is Porto Seguro?
Porto Seguro.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
And that's a city in Germany.
That's a city in Germany.
Actually, when you go to Trancoso, your waste goes to this place.
In
Fancy
Brasilia,
hotel.
in Brazil,
That waste destination.
in Brasilia, we still have something.
No, Brasilia is just closed his
closed?
dump site last year. They have a new landfill.
Estrutural.
Estrutural.
Yeah.
Estrutural. We visit, right?
Yeah, that was terrible too.
Nowadays, the only state capitals that still have dump sites in Brazil is Cuiabá and Teresina. Teresina actually is moving for a landfill. I don't know how it is, but Cuiabá have a terrible dump site. Okay. Brasilia manage. Manaus, you have. It's a landfill, but it's not very well managed. But it's a landfill. You used to have a huge problem in Belém, but there's a new landfill there. But our main problem are in the small cities.
Just so I have the concepts right, because you mentioned the dump sites and the landfills. So one is pure waste thrown there and
Over the land. No treatment. No, that actually is not the difference between a dump site and a landfill is the environmental impact. Okay, a landfill, you have a cover that cover the lands. You capture the biogas, leaching. You recollect the leaching. You send to a wastewater plant. You recollect the biogas. You cover. It's an engineering project. Okay, the other one is just waste throw over the land. Okay, that's the difference. Actually, we are still managed to close all the dump sites. We still don't have all our waste going to landfills. Okay, and we already have some cities that are already more well developed, like São Paulo. São Paulo, you already have things going on, and the state of São Paulo and the states of São Paulo and the south. You already have almost 100% of this waste going to landfills. Most of the problems are in the north and the northeast and the center west, Midwest. Okay.
broadly speaking, Brazil has lots of,
3,000 dump sites, 3,000 something, lots of dump sites. Okay. And actually, for me, there's all to do with we still don't have infrastructure, but we also don't have a mindset in business that push it. Okay, because there is in Brazil we usually have European laws, but we have a American mindset for business. So we have a very hard law, okay, but we don't have a business model that's already is very representative for everybody. We still have a business model that's based in service, okay? So people are not thinking about recover anything about the waste because it's still not the most profitable ways to make it. Landfill it is still the most profitable ways to do it, the way to do it, because we still don't have Ambev. Because when the companies say that I need to buy 35% of recyclable materials, okay? Like what's the movement that state of São Paulo made? CETESB nowadays to renew or to give any operation license, ask for this business owner, where you have to prove then that you are taking part of the reverse logistic. So where your credits, how you prove it, how you're taking part of it, okay? That's something that start to pull all the chain, okay? Yeah. And that's something that really, like the new landfill of Osasco, have the obligation to install a MRF there. For you to put your new landfill, you need to put a MRF, okay? And things like this really start to move the market and start to pull, to make it move. Not only a law, because this law put a lot of pressures over the municipalities about have more money to put in the system, but they don't even pay their usual bills. So they don't go for it. You really need to have money coming from other things, okay, other business. That all this recovering business bring you usually a lot of good quality revenues. That's the main change for the next step, and that's something that could take longer than we expect. Okay, but it's happening, it's moving. Okay, you see. Maybe it's not happening here in São Paulo, but it's happening in Pernambuco. It's happening in the countryside. The city of São Paulo is discussing a whole new model for the waste recovery. Okay, things happening. Okay, things are changing slowly, but they are changing. Done?
Alexandre, I have another question about the.
Can I just interrupt you?
Oh, you have to present.
No, yeah, I still.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm done.
Otherwise, we will carry on.
No.
I came to present.
That's it. Yeah. So how do I move on? Can you hear me there? Okay. So I brought this image because mostly in 2013 and 14, I don't know if you two know, but São Paulo went through a very harsh water crisis. So I cannot remember how much, but we had, say, a few days worth of water to bring to the city, and that was it. And there was no expectation of any rain whatsoever. Many houses and buildings and hospitals were rationing water, and we had these major water crises, and São Paulo was likely to be the first metropolis to run out of water in modern history. So by the same time, there's no... Tá ouvindo? Tudo bem? Tá? By the same time, Cape Town in South Africa was going through the same situation, but suddenly the rain came. So we went through this, what we call hydrological cycle, that we cycle through every now and then, where it rains and then we calm down, and then the drought comes. A lot of people start discussing and becoming aware of this issue, and then people start to get concerned and panic, and then rains, and then we all calm down again, and so it makes no sense whatsoever, right? And that's basically the way that government operated until now, and personally, I think it hasn't changed much, because the way that has been approached was basically most of the attitude that was adopted until then. So we haven't changed the mindset. That's it. So just to bring this up, why have I shown these two images and bringing religious images into play? That's, for me, one of the reasons, because water is the most fundamental element, or is the fundamental element for life on Earth. And then I studied phenomenology, and I have the pleasure to receive a teacher of Master of Phenomenology, and he's coming to Brazil on the 8th of June. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. He's going to offer a few classes
at SESC Vila Mariana. And so this guy has been studying the movement of water for the past 40 years. And so what's so interesting on water movement that this guy has dedicated most of his life? He's 72. He's dedicated more than half of his life to study movement of water, because if every being is dependent on water, how does each and every being can fulfill its task on nature depends on how water puts itself, and it puts itself at service, right? Water just serves. And so I just want to bring how this idea on how can we serve, how can we plan cities to serve for the benefit of life, of all life forms. And so in many cases we can see one picture. We can say there is a saying in Portuguese, quem vai pagar o pato, which more or less says who is paying for the duck, whereas you may see both a rabbit or a duck. It depends on how you see it. And sometimes the way we design, we may find ourselves designing a rabbit, but it's actually a duck. So what's the impact? What's the negative impact of the choices we make when we're designing infrastructure for water? And so we cannot talk water without discussing food and energy. It comes together because water is cyclical, and it works. Food production and energy production are also dependent on water. So there is this relation called food, water, and energy nexus. And also, one interesting thing is that the more you control, the less community participates into your decisions and your systems. So to illustrate a bit of how we design water from a linear perspective, I want to start off with this news that I collected back in 2014. For you, maybe, I don't know if you can read Portuguese, but it's saying basically, in dry season, the neighborhood suffers with flood. São Paulo has historic heat with 37.8 degrees of temperature, with, how do you say, sensação térmica? Yeah, up to 47 degrees, right? Up to 47 degrees. And then typically of autumn, São Paulo is going to have very low humidity and dry air this weekend, with most thermal changes, right? If you see these, you go straight away and think that you are in desert. But this is São Paulo, and São Paulo is Atlantic rainforest. We are in the rainforest, or originally rainforest, right? So how did it become to be from, how did it go from a rainforest into this desert ecosystem? And a few other images. 3 billion reais afterwards. Why the still Rio Tietê is so polluted? This is an image from a short movie called Volume Vivo. It depicts the amount of wastewater that goes to wastewater treatment station. That was in 2014. I believe it may have changed a little bit. So 18 cubic meters per second used to go to wastewater treatment, and 45 was sent to the local rivers. Maybe Gesner could correct, but I don't think this is too far from reality. Yeah.
This is the Tietê river, is the river we were talking about this afternoon. Actually, we were seeing the Pinheiros, but it belongs to the same basin.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, besides the sewage, we have the waste. And so the combination of both during the rainy season is awful. Because
One-third is waste, right?
yeah, yeah.
And diffuse pollution that is
Diffuse pollution is mostly waste.
Yeah, it's washed to the river.
Streets.
Yeah.
And in this another news, that's back in 2008, failure in wastewater treatment station makes Tietê worse. And so, let's carry on solid waste, just a tiny bit. This is just a break-up division on what's the sort of solid waste we have, mostly in Brazilian cities. It should be more or less like that. Okay. So we're talking basically 50% of organic, and that's what I wanted to highlight. Okay, and the picture we've seen before with him. So the fundamental of a new approach to water and to sanitation could be in looking at nature and understanding how nature deals with both water provision, water distribution, water drainage, water purification, and even with solid waste. We can talk about manure, usually talk about manure when we're talking about agriculture, and how can we incorporate our organic waste into a productive stream. So this is another very interesting book from Buckminster Fuller, which is perceived by many as father of ecological design. And this is saying an instruction manual for a spaceship Earth. It's basically an approach to how do we understand, how can we work together with these laws, with these instructions, in a way that we can work together and make this place more fertile and more abundant, as it was before our impact started to getting too big. So when we talk integrated water management, we're talking on water provision, wastewater treatment, and stormwater, and the interfaces between them. So when we look at it and we look at a simple site, and it's easy for us, we can look at this from a city perspective, or we can look at this from a local, very local perspective, say a rural neighborhood, or even an office building or building like this. Where does the water comes from? What's the amount of water that this building is producing? What's the quality of these different flows of water that are being produced in this building? And how can I close the cycles locally so I depend the less possible from resources that come far from here? Say, I imagine this building relies mostly on water by Sabesp, if not 100%. So then we can ask, doesn't this building produce any water? Why do we have to rely 100% on a water that may come from Minas Gerais, from another state, to use for non-potable uses, to flush toilets? Can we use the water that is produced here? And by that I mean rainwater or even gray water. Gray water, for those of you that don't know, is the water that is not contaminated with feces. It's basically tap water or shower or kitchen and so on. So the first approach would be to reduce the amount of water you need. When you do so, you need to do a lot less investment to support your total needs. You even can use, say, a waterless waterless mictório, né? So you don't need water to flush urine, right? It's liquid already. So why put up water on top to flush this liquid away? And one thing that is very interesting is that when you're measuring the amount of water that people use, then it's easy. When you measure, you can charge appropriately. And when people are charged the appropriate amount of water they are using, then they are less prone to overuse. So they tend to be more conservative on their uses. And so I could talk a little bit on different technologies for wastewater reuse, for gray water reuse. This is just a very basic technology called constructed wetlands. This can be built on a small household. This is in a project that we designed 12 years ago in Itu for a house. And this house basically treats and reuses 100% of all its gray water. It doesn't use any potable water for non-potable uses. And there is no energy involved in this. All this is natural technology. These plants provide the medium for microorganisms to grow and to digest the organic material that is flowing with water. So we can scale this up a little bit and go north of Rio de Janeiro, and because you say, well, can you use constructed wetlands to, say, a city? And this is an experience in Araruama. By that same time, my master and friend of Rodrigo was a consultant at this site, Valmir Facchini, and the guys in Araruama had designed, well, they had paid for an American company to design a system like this, but they didn't, and they were counting mostly with a plant called lemna. But what happened is that these ponds were full of tilapia, and tilapia love lemnas. And so as soon as they put the lemnas in, the tilapia ate it all, and the whole system was useless because they didn't know how to deal with it. So they invited this friend of ours, and he redesigned this whole system to make it productive with whatever resources they had there. So Araruama. Grupo Águas do Imperador. Águas do Imperador. Isso. É na região dos lagos ali no Rio. And so, well, they simply transformed the ponds they had by then. They used different types of plants, both floating macrophytes and emergent macrophytes. This is papyrus for the papyrus, right? And these plants, they are collected along with this. These part of these are harvested. Well, the funny thing of this is that when you take the plants off, they bring out the nutrients, and that's why that's why they created this new design by then, because the wastewater treatment station was not able to cope and to deal with the amount of nutrient that was being expelled with the wastewater. So they had to find a way to take the nutrients off. And so these plants are used to do exactly that. They recover the nutrients, and they're used both as compost and partly to feed the fishes that inhabit some of these ponds. They produce roughly 250 tons of dry biomass a month just from composting these plants. Dry biomass and 88 tons of compost a month, just this station, right? This is taken to reforesting, and culturas perennes, which would be, say, fruit trees, for example, or even wood production. This is a city that has 100,000 inhabitants, just to give us an idea on what we're talking. As far as I know, it's the largest wetland, constructed wetland system in South America, even Latin America.
Provides water for 100,000 people.
No, Araruama is a city that has 100,000 inhabitants, and they produce, all of them produce wastewater that is directed towards this wastewater treatment station.
So it does all the wastewater treatment for 100,000 people?
Yes, exactly. And then it goes off to the Araruama, Lagoas de Araruama, to the ponds, which are very close to the sea.
In the concessionaire is Águas de Jutunaíba.
Desculpa, Água de Jutunaíba, não de Imperador, é.
Which
Grupo
is
Águas do
related
Brasil.
to Águas do Brasil.
Yes, exactly.
Which is Carioca and
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Queiroz Galvão.
Mm-hmm. And so just to give you an idea on the cost, we're talking about a conventional tertiary system, which is this sort of wastewater treatment that removes nutrients. By then, and that's 2015 costs, was R$1.91 a cubic meter. This system was producing the same amount of water for 24 cents. So it's roughly 8 times less than this conventional treatment, okay? Very technical, very complex system. And how long do you think I can go on? Because it's 20 to 9.
The question is we must have the coffee break at this point, otherwise people starve.
Okay.
Because I think at 9 o'clock the cafeteria closes.
Okay.
So my suggestion is that we stop.
Okay.
And then if we, Marco has a presentation, but you come back and you make the,
I finished
the
it
key
up.
points.
This up. Okay.
And
Okay,
if
sure.
if you want, before Marco starts, perhaps you could highlight the basic points,
Okay.
which are very interesting, and then Marco can
Okay.
Tell us about Sweden and how it differs from our experience. Okay. Okay, very good. So let's have a coffee break. We are back at 9. Okay, 20 minutes to.
So, when you see these two images basically talking about the same place, the only difference we can say is the time, because there is an intelligence ruling over us all that transform this into this if we let it go. So how can we design our cities in a way that we can have this running along ourselves, of our lives and everyday lives? And basically when we talk about stormwater, and we usually relate to drainage, and drainage is a technique. This technique is related to how quick we can take water out of the landscape. So in a natural landscape, 95% of water infiltrates, whereas in the city we have the exact opposite. And so what happens is that we have dry cities. That's why we have those news that I shared with you that we saw back in 2014 with very high temperatures, very low humidity, and so on. So this is how we design. We've been designing cities until now, and this is how, of course, it's an illustration of how we should design our cities to retain water, to keep water where it falls, and to nourish the landscape and bring and create productive landscapes. So there is a whole bunch of strategies and names for these. We can talk about sponge cities, we can talk about water-sensitive cities, of biophilic design cities and all that. I just want to bring these major points and how we could approach the same idea of retaining water locally into a simple building like this. For example, we could start off with green roofs and what we call a treatment train. In that way, that whatever overflows from one element then goes to the other one, and then we retain water, and we're actually talking about a productive and multifunctional landscape. We're not just retaining water, but we're producing oxygen, we're producing low temperature air, we're producing food, and we retaining water along the way. And we can talk about permeable pavers and cisterns and ponds and rain gardens, and I just want to talk a little bit about this because we need to find ways to deal with water in a productive fashion with landscape, with plants, because they are the intermediators between soil and water, right? So just before we jump into that, a very quick perspective on this. When we drain, we do not allow water to infiltrate and to recharge the aquifers. So one of the things that are very important to do is, whenever appropriate, we can infiltrate water. There are many different ways. This is just one way in a shopping mall back in Spain. This is a 200 or 300 cubic meter infiltrator made up with plastic modules like this. You just put it together and roll this over, bring soil back, and this can work as a parking lot, but still it's infiltrating water, or you can harvest water in, okay? So I'm also talking about this because in São Paulo, we are very used to see water being pumped out of the garages of buildings and just straight into the gutter, right? And most of this water could be used for non-potable uses, right? We have, this was back in 2014, a portaria from DAE, which regulates the use of this water. This can be used if you measure, you go through a quick analysis of a few parameters, and then if it's fitting in this regulation, then you could use for non-potable uses, for say, for all toilet flushing of a whole building of a whole series of buildings. We've done this a few times already, actually. This is a building I've designed back in 2007. This is the first building actually designed in São Paulo. This is in Rua Harmonia 57. If any of you want to go, this is in Vila Madalena. It's a store called Farm of, yeah, female dress and all. Anyway, this is a building that circulates both rainwater and groundwater that would be just pumped out. So their bill now, the last time I went there was 25 reais or something like this, because they use all this local water for non-potable uses, and their potable use is minimal, right? 25 reais is their monthly bill.
Oh,
monthly bill.
Water and sewer.
Yeah, yeah. They're paying the minimum amount, constantly, month over and over. This is it's a green facade. This photo was taken right after this was launched, so this was covered up, has been covered up by plants, all over, all that. You're gonna save this presentation. You can look for it on the internet if you want to. So I just want to finish this up. Yes, I designed this. This was awarded an international prize in 2010. How's it called? I'm going to remember later on, but it was awarded in Austria to the architects who are behind this major orchestration. I designed the whole water system for this. So when we live in a city like São Paulo that has very few trees, we usually stand in places like this, where we're crossing the streets on the sidewalk, and we have this feeling, a thermal sensation of 47 degrees maybe on the sidewalk, or 35 degrees if the sun hits over the grass. But if you're walking under the tree, then you may have 17 degrees, up to 37 if it's nearly this border of the concrete, right? So if we shade, we can change completely the landscape, even in big cities like São Paulo. So I just want to finish up with this idea, talking about the rain gardens. I don't know if many of you have heard of it, but this is an approach I've been working on for the past 6 years or so. And we're now seeing rain gardens spotted here and there in São Paulo already. The basic idea of the rain garden is that it's lower than the surroundings, so water flows in, right? Our usual gardens are heightened up. They are higher than the surroundings, so water falls on the soil and then goes off. The idea of the rain garden is to bring water in, and when you do so, you not only allow water to infiltrate back, but also you create condition for these plants to thrive without irrigation for most part of the year. And also because you have plants here, you create an air, you're producing air with filtered air, with less pollution, right? Because it retains particles, from air pollution, thank you, right? And you're also producing habitat for microfauna, and you're producing low temperature air and humidity around, so there are many benefits we can get out from a rain garden. This is an approach that many cities across the world have taken up to design the streets to deal with water. So one of the issues we have, remember I told you, about the quality of Rio Tietê that was really bad after so many billions of reais, because wastewater is just one part of the problem. The diffuse pollution carried out by stormwater is another part. So these strategies put up not only to retain water, but to improve the water quality. And that's why it has been implemented across the world. Because once you have a better quality of water going through the drain, then it goes to the rivers, and then you have rivers with better quality as well. And then these cities can rely on rivers to provide water for them. So a little example of a project we designed back in 2017, very near, not far from here, at Largo da Batata. This is the old Largo de Pinheiros. It was an old gas station that was not in use for many years, and then we were allowed to come in and redesign the whole place. So I was invited actually to design a rain garden there. And so the planting was done voluntarily by many different people that came over for a planting day. We got a group together on the 17th of December, and a lot of people brought their kids, and we all planted. And then this was the first rain that came inside the rain garden. So what happens here is that all water that is growing through the gutters around this praça, it's directed inwards towards this place. So water doesn't go anymore to, how do you say, Boca de Lobo? Yeah, it doesn't go to the pipes anymore, it comes in. And now if you go there, you would be surprised because you cannot really see this anymore. The vegetation has taken over. It's beautiful. It's full of flowers and butterflies. And yeah. You can visit anytime. It's across the street. It's near Sesc Pinheiros, if any of you know. And so the idea of this was that it's not only good for us, designers, of those of you who are perhaps entrepreneurs that are trying to design buildings or to sell buildings like this. They're good for everyone. So this research by the Cooperative Research Center on Water Sensitive Cities in Australia discussed a few topics on how these buildings were more valued when some of these issues were considered. And they talked about how many people had decided to pay a little bit more, to pay a plus, if they were living in a place that had more comfort, right? That was less susceptible to heat waves, for example, closer to parks and all that. So it's really good for everyone. And so just to finish up with solid waste, which is the last thing I'm gonna talk, I did a postgraduate study last year on biodigestion. And I studied at CI Biogás, which is Centro Internacional de Referência em Energias Renováveis em Biogás in Itaipu. And so most of the work is directed to rural settings and a bit of organic city waste, mostly organic waste. But I deal mostly with water, as I told you. So my perspective was how can I design buildings that produce biogas from whatever organic material we had. So one obvious flow that I told that we can see here is the toilet flush, right? We are usually more worried with wastewater treatment than on resource recovery. So the idea is how can I recover resources from a toilet flush? And one of the ideas is of obvious to produce biogas. We also have a lot of nutrient flowing out of it. And so these nutrients could be used for irrigating purposes, for example. Also, on the aspect of organic waste produced by a building, there is really an incredible amount of biogas that can be produced. We can say, but how much can we produce out of a simple place like this? And I can show you this project that is installed in Itaipu. They collect 450 kilos of organic waste, which is basically very little if you talk about city, like we were discussing now. It's very tiny. But this place converts all these organic waste stream into biomethane. They produce biogas, and they filter, and they compress, and then you have biomethane, and they fill their tanks. So this is a pump station out of that biogas production, biomethane production, and they fill 7 tanks of a car every day, right? This is equivalent to perhaps 2 large buildings together. It's easy to do this. So what I'm saying is that just imagine if you lived in a building that offered you perhaps to fill your tank every 7 days. Why not? It's being thrown away. We can have it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is actually a complex, it's not an easy task to produce biomethane, but it's achievable, right? The easiest way is obvious to burn, to heat water, for example, to use in kitchens and all that. Yeah, I personally I cook on biogas at home. I have a biodigester at home. And I implement, just to finish this up, I've designed a biodigester system for favelas and to rural settings. And many families now have extended the longevity of their gas from 1 month to 2 months, right? They usually buy gas every month. Now they're buying every 2. So that means they're using a good amount of biogas that extending the time they can use their gas. Okay, so I think this is it. My time is finished. So there are a few references for you here. You're going to have access to this presentation and my contact. If you want to talk about this further, just let me know, just contact. Thank you.
Where are you based?
I'm based in a small town called Pedra Bela. It's Pedra Bela. It's behind Bragança Paulista. I was born in São Paulo and raised in São Paulo, but now I live in a small farm with my family.
Very good. Now we turn to Marco. Thank you very much, Marco, for coming to discuss and
Okay. Professor, I'm sorry I misunderstood the proposal. I thought it was a debate, and I didn't prepare anything special for this presentation. And I apologize also for the audience because it's in Portuguese, and also it is an academic and so a kind of boring language. I think so because I rather to write in a most common language and most common, and so I wrote a book to show the Brazilian audience my experience without this language, without this academic language, okay? But anyway, oh, okay, okay. So this is the structure of my work, my academic work, and but my motivation, main motivation, was that at the time that Alexandre looked for us in Arcesp, the Olympic Games was to be set in Brazil, and so everybody was worried about all the garbage within the Guanabara Bay. Okay, this was a very huge repercussion around the world, and so it was a motivation. And at that time,
Fabiani and Crucio know where Guanabara Bay is. It's in Rio de Janeiro. And
do you?
during the Olympics, it was a shame because it was very hard to sail there, and especially to swim there.
Yeah.
Not very pleasant when you have to swim.
Amidst the garbage.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And the sail competition was they were very worried about this because they could hit something. Yes, that's it. And at the same time, I saw this article showing that Sweden and Norway was how can I say, was disputing for the garbage to produce energy. So it was funny because at the same time we were worried about the garbage, and they were looking for garbage, and so that made me research this aspect. So this is the main questions, but I had a lot of side objectives, because we, as Alexandre said, we don't know much about waste management beside landfillings. We don't know anything about this. In my agency, as I said before, we deal with sanitation, but we don't deal with waste management, but nobody knows about other ways of dealing with waste besides landfilling. So I was there for looking for searching other ways to deal with that. Okay, and it was a study case because of this complex, the issue, the complexity of the issue, and I went to 11 cities, and I went to research about anaerobic digestion that produces biogas and biomethane there, and also the incineration plants. Okay, everybody in Brazil, we used to be very, we used to have one decision, and we think, oh, this is the best way, and don't mind about the other way. This is the right one, and the others say, oh no, you are wrong, and we dispute all the time about the solutions, and we saw in Sweden that they dispute a little bit, but they used both solutions. In fact, they are reference in both solutions. Well, I will pass through this. I would like to extend a little more here. Here is the list of the countries that here is the recycling, the green one. Here is the energy recovering, the red one, and the gray one is the landfilling. And so in Brazil we used to say, in Sweden they used to say also, that energy recovered compete with recycle. And but what we see, if you compare the figures, is that it's not true, because most of the countries that use to recover energy also are in a very good position in recycling. So, in the other side, most of the countries that don't perform very well in recycling absolutely don't use energy recovery. As I said, I went to see a lot of routes, technological routes, and as Alexandre said, this is the mass burning. That it's the collector. It's not a received the fuel. That is this one. This is another route. This here we can see, but there's an machine called Tyrannosaurus. They used to call like that, and the waste is pre-treated before to go to the chamber, and this is the crude, the non pre-treated waste goes directly to the grate. And this is the digester, the anaerobic digester. As Alexandre said, it's a faster way of recover the biogas to produce biomethane. And most of the people say here that it's impossible for us in a developing country to use technologies and to use Sweden, that is a very developed country, as a benchmark, because they are richer than us. But Sweden was not rich always. It was a very poor country in Europe during the 19th century. And they export people. There are a lot of Sweden in the United States, for instance, or even in Brazil. As Italy and other countries, they used to export people because they were very poor. But they took advantage of the second industrial revolution as the electricity will start to, the technology of electricity start to spread. They had a lot of water source to use the hydroelectricity, and they start to develop also the technology. Okay, and so they took advantage of this paradigm change, and I think that they are still looking for this change, these possible changes, because they were the first one, or I don't know the first one, but one of the first one that paid attention in environmental issues. they stated the first environmental agency. They held the first United Nations conference regarding environment and so on. One thing that it's different from us is that the municipalities are very rich, because unlike us, our taxes goes to the central government, and then the central government start to give back the taxes. And then there is not true. The municipality has the most of the taxes. Okay. Well, another thing that is very different from us is the climate, obviously, the weather, obviously. And so they need a lot of heat. And one thing that they used to do is that every household has your individual heating system, but it caused a lot of pollution because it's not controlled. It is very inefficient, and so in the middle of the 20th century, they start to rationalize it. They start to produce heat in a central plant. They called district heating, and so it's a very handicap that they have to use that kind of waste recovering. When Sweden started to develop during the whole 20th century, the waste start to rise also, and it start to become a problem during the second part of the 20th century. And the country at that time, it was very reliant on oil. It was about 8% of its energy. It was from oil. But during the oil crisis, during the 1970s, they start to look for other sources. Okay, and biomass and waste became one of these possibilities. And another aspect is that during that time, it was created an energy tax, and it was because they want to save oils. They want to save oil, and so they charge this energy tax. But during the 1990s, when they noted that the climate change became a very huge problem, they switched. They took advantage of tax reform to halve the energy tax, but charge this part of the tax with emissions. So the user don't feel it was not a tax increase. It was the same size of this tax. But it was very important, this change, because then people use to look for another alternative fuels. Well, this kind of incentive, they use it a lot, and they use with solid residuals also. So they, for instance, at 2000, they they set a landfill tax, and as they start to ask for the municipalities a waste plan at the beginning of the 1990s, and as I said, we started also our plan at that time. At that time, we are not so delayed. Here, they said the producer responsibilities, and as Alexandre said, we share the responsibility. No, but they had this producer responsibility. So most of the recycling systems is funded by the producers. Well, here they banned the landfill because they were very. They are using. Oh, let me remember something. During the 1980s, at the middle of 1980s, they start to worry about the dioxins and furans, as most of people in Brazil used to worry about. But the government, said, okay, we will stop to allow incineration plants, and they set one commission, one expert commission, and this commission will study if it could be it is dangerous, it's hazardous or not. And the commission studied for about 6 months and decided that no, it's okay. We can we can continue to do that, only with a little with tied indicators. Okay, the companies and the municipalities continues to set another incineration plant. It's very different from Brazil, because imagine in Brazil, if the government set one commission and say, oh, study, I don't know if I don't know. I know that they will. Oh no, the government set a commission, and it's very suspicious. We won't trust this commission because we are like that, I think. Well, so they continue to set incineration plants, and to diminish the landfilling, they simply ban the landfilling or combustible waste. Okay, and then after that they banned the landfill of organic waste to fuel the anaerobic digester. Okay, I think it's very related with these figures, because this is our GDP, the Suez GDP, and this is their emission. It's this same framework, the frame time of the last one, and you see that the GDP rose, and the emissions drop. And in Brazil, we used to say that, oh, if you set such legislation, we won't develop. But it's not true. And Sweden shows us clearly that. Okay, that's the most important part, and that I think that could be the most interesting part. But as I said, it was a very short time to expose to that defense. And here we have the big cities. They are not so big because the Great Stockholm has along more or less 1.5 million of population. It's not very big for Brazilian standards. And Gothenburg has about 500,000, and Malmo about 300,000 population. And Stockholm has a very different waste management from the other countries. Indeed, the district heating are very different also. There are a lot of different companies, most of them private companies, and it's very different from the rest of the municipalities. And they are linked each other by ducts that carry the heat, and they use the most cheaper heat, and they are connected, and who have the best price are deliver the heat. Okay, and here is the huge. In Stockholm, there was no a huge disaster there, but in 2015, it was created a very private also company to receive the organic waste. Gothenburg, yes, they have, including a tour. They care about they want to show a lot of concern about sustainability. That they have a tour. You can pay 2,000 reals to visit that plants. So I couldn't go there. And in Malmo, they have this big incinerator. They use mass burning, and they intended to have one disaster there, but they consider it is an unstated company, but they decided not to build the digester because they thought it was not good. They were not recovered their investments, their capex. So they are very, although it was a company, it was a own state company, they were concerned about the return. In Västerås, there are two this is the old district heating plant. It was used oil, but it was almost shut down because they use this plant that is situated behind the other one that use that residue fuel, and they has also the digester plant. This is the one state-owned plant company, and this is a private company. In Link Shopping, there one company that uses to deliver all kind of service, and it's a very huge company, very owned, state-owned company that used to offer both biogas and both incineration, even water, sewage, and internet. It's a very huge company. So you can see there are a lot of different solutions between the cities. In Helsingborg, in other side, there are I think that is a very interesting solution. This is the Vera Park. It used to be a landfill, but then there is this state-owned company that organizes a lot of little companies dedicated to the circular economy, or each company, recycling company, or even analysis company, they are very dedicated to circular economy. So they are very keen to do that. But even there, there was a very huge incinerator plant, which means that we are very far from not using, avoid or not use the incineration plant, because in this place there are a lot of recycling company. Even that, there are incineration plants there. Yes.
How long did you stay in Sweden?
I've been there for 6 months, but this technical visits were during 2 months, but I've been there in Helsingborg the last for 4 months more. And Borås, I think in Borås it's very interesting because this is the incineration plant. It's located at the downtown, very close to the stadium, the Borås Stadium. And this very huge plant that gets water, sewage, and a lot of sanitation plants, landfill, are located 10 kilometers far from the downtown, and the trucks goes to gather the trash, goes to this plant 10 kilometers far, and then the waste is sorted. Part of them goes to the organic part goes to the digester, and the other part returns to the city, to downtown, and is incinerated. And this shows us that the emission is not a very important issue there, because the dioxins and fluorines are not a very important issue, because it's in the middle of the city, the downtown, and but they complain about the smell, I think, because they carry to sort 10 kilometers away. This is John Chopin, is another incineration plant. This city, Kauskorga, is a very tiny city, but they gather waste from another cities, bigger cities, and they take waste from Karlstad and Örebro that are very bigger than them. This is the most little plant, and they have only the city has only 12,000 inhabitants, and the company has only five staff people, employees. Yes, thank you.
Because we're 8 minutes to 10.
Okay.
So let me suggest, it's a fascinating thing, but if you could use the 8 minutes to give the basic conclusions and allow
Okay.
some reactions.
Only one thing about this. This is the last plant I will show, because this is the tiniest one, and they were very concerned about the competitivity with this individual solutions, individual heating solutions, because the city is not it's not concentrated, and so they use they can deal with all waste. They have equipment to burn all kind of waste, but they rather to use wood, rest of wood to burn, and was as and it makes me think that most of people here in Brazil used to think that they want to burn plastic, but they don't want to burn plastic. The most cost effective is the wood, and they rather to burn the wood, and so that was my visit planning. That there's another thing that as Alexander said, that there's this is in the producer responsibility system, and people used to go and deposit the garbage, the recyclables there, to not pay the fee, the waste fee. Okay, this is also the responsibility.
Take the waste there, you do not pay anything.
Yes, that's it. And also in this case that you have in the supermarket, you bring the cans and the bottles, and you can change for money. That money, one ticket, one value, one voucher to use in your supermarket. Okay, and they don't use biomethane within the grid. They don't have a very huge grid. They use in transport, and they transport the biomethane by trucks, And so we have a little of advantage in comparing to them in this case, because we have a gas grid that we can use. Well, that's, I think that's the very this is the success factors. And the district heating is very important, and it's difficult to bring us to us. So we can use cooling, district cooling, but we have to plan our seats to do that. And they start to use gestion, anaerobic gestion, to deal with the sewage treatment, and they continue the replacing of oil. We started with alcohol, with ethanol, but they continue this politics, and they have a very huge trust in their institutions, and they establish a tax over carbon emissions, and they banned both fuel residues and organic residues. They coordinate actions, because we used to split our initiatives between departments and companies and so on. And they have a very important, the municipalities are very they have most of the tax collected. The companies, most of the companies are owned, stated owned, but they are not, they have a they don't stay controlling things only. They used to have initiative, and also the waste tax, waste fee, and they integrate recycling and energy recovery, and they have one paradigm of using companies with academy and states. They don't. They are very collaborative between them, and they have an holistic view of public politics. And I think that that was the success factors. I think that is it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? 1 minute for a question. Thomas.
Any question well, about everything that you saw in Sweden, like as a first step in Brazil for a kind of entrepreneurship or comparison, which one of these 15 solutions and success case would you say like that's the easiest one for us? It's difficult to say, but I think that we can start to consider these factors, because it's difficult to achieve.
I would like to use number 12.
Sure. Oh yes, that's it.
Otherwise,
that's it. Yes.
People will not.
That's it.
Will not be rational.
I think that.
And if you pay for it, people will be more conscious, and at the same time, it will be possible to have longer-term contracts, because you have receivables, and you have guarantees, and you can have public-private partnerships, and then things can work. I think that that will be crucial in the provisional measure 868. Give some comfort to mayors to introduce that tax.
Yes, but even that in Brazil it's a little complicated because I've heard that the São Paulo municipality tried to, in fact, set one law that the huge waste producers, had to provide another solution than the common one. And the secretary at that time said that the restaurants very high profile restaurants used to separate, to sort the waste along the the neighbor. Yes, that's true. I've heard that. So it's difficult even for Brazil. In Sweden, they have a lot of way of charge, but the most common is the size of the bin.
Yeah.
So if you have this bin, you'll be charged at that time. We don't have bins. Also, we have.
Actually, we have some cities that already have beans.
Oh yes.
Okay, if you, Rio de Janeiro has beans.
Oh, okay.
It's all collected with beans. Actually, what the matter of charge, there's a lot of discussion about the political issue that a mayor have when they put a new charge. Okay, but and then I think that the accounts part have to take charge of this, and they go for a new contract. They need to prove that they have the money to pay for the contract. Okay, and that's something that's already moving forward in a good way. Okay, like here in the state of São Paulo, you cannot put a PPP contract for waste management if you don't have a waste tax.
Okay.
So a lot of things are starting to move in a positive way. I understand when you say people always find out some way to don't make it, okay? But we should not only see the bad side, okay? We need to move to the right side.
No, of course. When I show that, I think that we can look at that, all those success factors to reach a solution. But I think even the easiest one in Brazil it's not so easy. I think so.
The political factor in it is what's really nowadays, because people understand that here in São Paulo you have the taxa, right? When
Yes.
that's the waste tax. Okay, that someone come, the other may say, oh, that's from the other party, we don't want it. But then you don't have the money to make to put the system. Okay, that's something that people need to understand. That's not a political issue.
How about in the U.S. cities and the Swiss cities? Do we have?
United States, most of the city you pay for the waste house.
Yeah, but you don't pay by size.
Yeah,
You just pay general tax. Yeah.
You have different
It's
ways
not
of paying.
proportionate to the amount of garbage.
Yeah.
You just
Just
pay
the average price.
according to your region.
You pay like taxes for like waste collection and stuff, and that's by municipality.
Okay.
It's a flat tax.
It's a
So
flat tax, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't work. Like people don't reduce
Yeah,
their.
Brazilian law don't allow this flat tax. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, when you talk about a concession contract, a concession long-term contract, you must individualize the amount of each one generated. So the bin is the logical way, because then you choose the size of the bin and how often you have the collection.
So there was one interesting case study, not related to wastewater treatment, waste like collection, but water utility. So everyone pays flat tax in California for water utility, but people were given, they were sent letters, right? comparing like how much water they consume compared to everyone else,
Mhm.
and that has like struck a lot of behavioral changes. So,
see.
I mean, I feel like
So
people
they
are
want to save.
They would give you are 20% above average.
yeah, they literally sent official letters home to everyone.
Because
No,
if
they
you
didn't say
don't
anything
have,
else.
if everybody pay the same, you don't have any, how you gonna make people save
Yeah,
money if generate less or consume
right,
less
right.
water,
There's no
right?
motivation.
So there's no financial motivation,
Mhm.
okay? So you should make some kind of, you need to size it.
Right, right.
How about Switzerland?
In Switzerland, you pay by size.
You pay by size.
Yeah.
I see. Which city do you live in, or where are you from in Switzerland?
Bern.
Bern. Okay, and you pay by size.
Yeah.
I see.
I
Very
think there the
good.
system works quite well with recycling.
With recycling,
Yeah.
what's the percentage of recycling in
I think
Bern?
he showed it. In Bern, I don't know, but he showed it was like 50%. It was 50% recycling.
Yeah,
50.
in Switzerland,
Yeah. It's that table with green and red.
But we still recycle less than, for example, Austria. They're even better in recycling.
Really?
Yeah, they recycle more than we do. I think, yeah. But Austria, for example, I think they're the best in recycling. Because when I go to Austria, they recycle everything. I think they have like
Yeah.
5 different garbage at home. So we have like
Yeah, in the US we have different separation too, and collection is separate, but no one
yeah,
cares.
but nobody does it.
Everyone throws everything away in the garbage, yeah.
But yeah, in the US, you just throw trash on the street, which it doesn't happen in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. If somebody happens to throw garbage on the street, what happens? Is there a fine? Or it's unnecessary because people don't do
Nobody
that?
does it. I mean,
In the US, there's heavy fines for it. People, you can just put it in a bin,
Yeah.
and people will take as much as you have.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but there is that joke, right?
there's already like social norms that you don't
Yeah.
do it, so people tell you, what are you doing?
People
So
are
it's
conscious about, yeah,
you just wonder.
yeah.
But there's, in Switzerland, there's a cement company that nowadays already substitute 80% of this fossil fuel with garbage.
Which one?
One plant, okay? not
One
all.
plant
There's one plant, of cement plant
Yeah,
in Switzerland
Uh-huh.
that nowadays already substitute
Mhm.
80% of this fossil fuel with garbage.
With garbage, I see. Yeah.
There's some plants in Northern Europe that substitute 100%.
Yeah.
Nowadays in Brazil, the cement companies already substitute 15%.
15,
15,
that's
okay?
good.
And we are chasing
Serving
55.
sector.
Nowadays our roadmap is chasing 55% of substitution.
That's good.
Because that's something that comes from the waste to energy, right? When you see this map, the waste substitution in a cement plant is in the red bars. That's waste to energy. Because sometimes you are thinking only about incinerators and generating energy, but
Yeah.
the thermal energy is a huge part of what goes in Europe. Because not only for heat, city district heating, but also for industrial companies, cement companies and other companies that are heat intensive.
Very good.
It's very interesting.
Excellent. Well, we could go on and on, but I just, we have to go home sometime, and thank you very much. I please request an applause to our guests. Excellent discussion. Next week we'll have a discussion on airports and ports. And the last one will be on public-private partnerships. Mark, vamos ficar. We have a book here to be. We have a book to be for the lucky one who get the book. So how can we do this? Through a number, perhaps. Let's see. First one, number one. First one to, please, Marco, choose a number among those 5. From 1 to 5, which number would you choose? 4. 4? Thank you. Very good. This is so fishy.